Hi, hello, welcome to Lucid Study in Class 8 under the Andhra Pradesh curriculum. Today in history, we are going to discuss a new chapter. That is chapter number 4, Tribals, Dikus and the Vision of a Golden Age. In this particular chapter, we'll be getting to know who are tribals, who are Dikus and how are they able to survive, or else we can say how are they able to settle at a particular place, or what was the living style or lifestyle of those tribals, especially during the British rule. Because when we say British rule, they always, even though had the idea of making the trade, earning the revenue and earning the profits, but as we have discussed in the previous chapters, that because of the scenario that they were in, they had to also do the administration. In part of doing the administration, they also look after the forest as well. And where does tribals live? They live in the forest. Hence, in that way, some or the other way, the tribals lifestyle has also got impacted, or else we can say got influenced by the British administration. So in this particular chapter, we'll be getting to know what are the different tribes that we have in India and what is the different lifestyles, or what were the problems, or what was the lifestyle that the tribal people used to have at that point of time. In the year 1895, a man named Birsa was seen roaming the forests and villages of Chota Nagpur in Jharkhand. Firstly, we need to understand this Chota Nagpur is not the same Nagpur which is in Maharashtra. This Chota Nagpur is in the state of Jharkhand. So there was this person called Birsa. In this picture, you can clearly see him. This person was roaming in the forests and villages. It was during 1895, or else we can say 19th century. People said he had miraculous powers. He had some supreme powers. He could cure all diseases and multiply grain. Like whatever the farmers were able to produce, he can multiply that. And at the same time, he had also the power to cure all the diseases by which people were suffering. Birsa himself declared that God had appointed him to save his people from trouble and free them from the slavery of Dikus. Who are Dikus? Dikus are nothing but outsiders. For these tribal people, who are the outsiders? Whomsoever it might be, whomsoever living outside the forest area, or else outside the area where tribals live, they are considered as Dikus. But to be specific, they are none other than the British people. So Birsa himself said, it's like self-proclaimed, it's like, I am God. I have been sent by God to cure all your problems. That's what even Birsa also said. He himself declared that God had appointed him to save his people. Who were those people? Especially the people in Chota Nagpur, or else we can say in the state of Jharkhand, from trouble. From whose trouble? It is the troubles the people are facing by the British rule or the British administration. Soon, thousands began following Birsa, believing that he was Bhagwan. What do you mean by Bhagwan? It is nothing but God. So, as Birsa himself had proclaimed that I have been sent by God, I have been appointed by God to solve all your problems. So, people started believing him that he is the God and had come to solve all their problems. Birsa was born in a family of Mundas, which is a tribal group that lived in Chota Nagpur. Here in this picture, we can clearly see the three major plateaus in India. One, the Deccan Plateau. Second, the Malwa Plateau. And the third, Chota Nagpur Plateau. This Chota Nagpur Plateau is very rich in minerals and it is a heartland of many tribal groups. Even though in this particular map, we can clearly see that the green color or lemon green color, it is only showcasing the state of West Bengal. But this state, which is the Bihar, and this state, which is the Jharkhand, it also comes under Chota Nagpur area or Chota Nagpur region. In that way, Birsa, who was born in a family of Mundas, which is a tribal group, and hence sometimes people also call him Birsa Munda, they lived in Chota Nagpur. But his followers included other tribals of the region who were Santals and Oraons. Santals are also a major tribal group in this region in Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal. Even though here we need to understand something, it's like when someone teaches something good, it doesn't get restricted to that particular group. When the idea spreads, when the preaching spreads, the people who like the idea, they will also follow. It's like when Birsa said, I am here to solve your problems. It's not only that the Mundas have become his followers, even people from other tribes like Santals and Oravans have also become his followers. All of them in different ways were unhappy with the changes they were experiencing and the problems they were facing under British rule. If you remember in the previous chapter, whether it might be trade to territory, whether it might be ruling the countryside, we clearly have got to understand that British never had the idea of ruling the country. British never had the idea of administering the country. They always wanted to do trade. They always wanted to do the business. In the way of business, they had to acquire some territories. As they have acquired the territories, it was a duty upon them to also do the administration. But even then, it was still a trading company which was looking for profits. Because of their trading tactics or administration tactics, people used to face a lot of issues. People used to face a lot of problems. Their familiar ways of life seemed to be disappearing. The way people used to live, it slowly got changing. It slowly got to transform. Their livelihoods were under threat. What do you mean by livelihood? Just imagine, if we talk about a tribal person, where do you think tribal lives? Tribal lives in the forests or the jungles. And if all of a sudden you change the forest law, you say people should not live in forests, then all of a sudden where will those tribal people go? So in that way, whatever the laws the British people were bringing, whatever the tactics that British people were using, all these were in one or the other way were problems for the people, especially the tribal groups. Their livelihoods were under threat and their religion appeared to be in danger. Whether it might be any religion, it should not be like only Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh or something like that. It can be any which religion that those people used to follow or believe in. But slowly, because of the activities, because of the rules and regulations the British have brought in their administration, it also made sure that their religion also started appearing to be in danger. What do you mean by threat? Threat, danger, all these are nothing but in one way, problems. So we got to understand, because of the way the British were administering the country, the people were suffering from problems. They were facing the threat with respect to the religion. They were facing the threat with respect to livelihood. They were facing threats with respect to the way they live. What problems did Birsa set out to resolve? So now Birsa had himself proclaimed, he himself said that I have been appointed by the God. Now what are the things that Birsa is trying to solve? Who were the outsiders being referred to as Dikus? We have got to know Dikus are nothing but the outsiders who doesn't belong to the tribal settlements or the tribal group. But in this context, who are Dikus referred to and how did they enslave the people of the region? How come they were able and efficient that those Dikus have made these tribal groups the slaves? What was happening to the tribal people under the British? How did their lives change? Obviously, we got to understand that the tribal groups, the tribal people, they were facing a lot of problems under the British rule. But what were those problems? How are they affected with it? How are they facing those problems? These are some of the questions you will read about in this particular chapter. So we will be getting to know how people have fought with the British, or what were the scenario, or what were the consequences, or what were the threats or the things that put tribal people in danger, especially under the British rule. Most tribes had customs and rituals that were very different from those laid down by Brahmins. Brahmins or the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas or the Shudras, we can say these people were considered as the mainstream society because they were the ones who used to live in settlements. But when we talk about tribal groups, they always used to live in forests and jungles. They were never included in the mainstream society. So when we talk about the tribal lifestyle, the customs and rituals, the way they celebrate festivals, the way they look at God, the way they live together, the way they live as a family is completely different from the way which was established by the Brahmins. These societies also did not have the sharp social divisions that were characteristic of caste societies. Just a while ago, we have discussed that when we talk about the mainstream societies at that point of time, there was a hierarchy. That when we talk about this, firstly, there used to be Brahmins, and then there used to be Kshatriyas, and then there used to be Vaishyas, and ultimately there used to be Shudras, Dalits, and untouchables. In that way, if you look at this hierarchy, there is no mentioning about tribal groups. In that way, tribals were completely excluded. They were never included in this sharp social divisions. We can clearly say because in the society, the place where Brahmins used to live, the place where Kshatriyas used to live, the place where Vaishyas used to live, all were completely segregated in such a way. We can clearly see the division and the divide which was there in the society. But when we talk about tribals with respect to sharp social divisions, it was never there in tribals. Tribals were always as a family. They always used to live together. There was no divisions, that too with respect to caste. All those who belonged to the same tribe thought of themselves as sharing common ties of kinship. What do you mean by that? They all believe that whomsoever would have shared the common ties of kinship, they all belong to the same family. When we talk about the mainstream society, the hierarchy that we have seen earlier, even though they were all part of the same society, but even then they had some divisions, and that too, they were not a blunt division, they were a sharp division in the society. But when we talk about tribal groups, they always believed that whomsoever it might be, if they all belong to the same tribal group, they all belong to the same family. However, this did not mean that there were no social and economic differences within tribes. This is something that we need to understand. Even though there might be two tribes, they feel that they belong to the same kinship, but even then, their social values or their social behavior or their economic values or the economic systems might vary within the tribal groups itself. So just a while ago, we got to know even though tribal groups, they themselves have believed that they were a family, but even then the social system and the economical system, or else the social life and the economic life of the tribes was completely different within the tribal groups itself. Then comes the question, how did tribal groups live? Because if their social life is different, if their economic life is different, then how are they able to cope up with the differences? By the 19th century, tribal people in different parts of India were involved in a variety of activities, whether it might be hunting or gathering food, whether it might be cultivating, whether it might be doing agriculture or doing something else. There were different ways by which tribal people were able to make their livelihood. And one among such is, some people were jhum cultivators. Some tribal people used to get involved in jhum cultivation. Now what is this jhum cultivation? Some of them practice jhum cultivation, which in simple terms is called shifting cultivation. The name says it all. Cultivation, okay, it's fine, growing a crop. But when it is from time to time, the people move from one place to the other. They shift from one place to the other, and hence the name shifting cultivation. In the states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, sometimes it is also called as Podu agriculture. Even if we call Podu agriculture or shifting cultivation or jhum cultivation, all means the same. Sometimes it is also called as slash and burn culture. Sometimes it is also called as slash and burn cultivation or slash and burn agriculture. This was done on small patches of land, but mostly in forests. Why they were doing on small patches of land? Because tribal groups always used to live in small amounts. Like whenever you see a tribal group, hardly there would be 200 to 250 people. They always looked after themselves, because if they have to look after themselves, they need not to have much area. They only need to ensure that in order for their livelihood, in order for their settlement, whatever the requirement is there, they used to do that much amount of cultivation. Hence, they were always small patches of land, and that too as they were the people who used to live in forest, and hence these small patches of land were also in the forest. The cultivators cut the tree tops to allow sunlight to reach the ground and burn the vegetation on the land to clear it for cultivation. This is very important. Just a while ago, we have got to know that it is also called as slash and burn agriculture. Why is that? Because first, they slash the trees. What do you mean by slash? Cutting the trees. First, they cut the tree tops. Why? Because in order to grow, in order to do agriculture, sunlight is very important. Or maybe by now you could have got to know what is photosynthesis. It is the process by which a plant makes the food by itself, by using sunlight and some other materials like water, etc. If there is no sunlight, then the crop or the plants won't be able to make its own food, right? Which means they won't be able to grow. And hence for that, they used to cut the top of the trees so that there won't be no canopy, and hence the sunlight will reach the ground, and they will also burn the vegetation which is there on the soil, so that then it becomes completely free. Then they start cultivating. Here in this picture, we can clearly see there are some trees which are standing there, but unfortunately the tree top is not there. So what have they done? They have slashed, they have cut the tree tops, because of which the sunlight is falling on the ground. And here you can see these small green saplings, which are nothing but the ones which they are growing, which they are cultivating.